Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, sponsored by the Mac Parkman Foundation, where we look at the issue of repetitive brain trauma from two aspects: repetitive head impacts from contact sports and repetitive blast exposure for our military veterans, and what these two conditions are doing to the mind, well-being, and mental health of our veterans, our kids, and our athletes. And why is this important? Is because the relationship between repetitive brain trauma, brain damage, and mental illness is not taught in any nursing, medical, psychological, suicide prevention course in this country. And that makes you the front line of defense. So we bring in the authors and researchers and scientists and veterans and athletes and everybody we can find, treatment specialists, so that you get that 360-degree perspective on this issue so that you can protect not only those that you love, but identify those that might be struggling so that you can get them the help they need. On our show today, another amazing guest, Chief Warrant Officer Jacek Walishewski. All right, that I had to practice that about 30 times. Is a Special Forces Warrant Officer, former Special Forces medic, and award-winning author. He earned a graduate diploma in strategy and innovation from the University of Oxford and is the founder of the HERO Protocol. And while he's been in special operations for 20 years, his first operational act was when he was only 3 months old. Polish revolutionary paperwork was smuggled in his diaper because his father was the co-founder of the Polish anti-communist resistance movement Solidarity. Now, after 20 years of service in Army Special Operations, multiple combat deployments, and a medical career spent keeping teams and partners alive, Jacek has turned his passion to the future. Drawing from 2 decades of special operations and his own history with concussions and TBIs, he created the HERO Protocol, a supplement system built on resilience to protect cognitive performance and to give the edge to those who have to operate in extreme environments, i.e. our soldiers, first responders, leaders, and high-impact athletes. Jacek, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Bruce, for having me. It's an honor.
No problem, man. Dude, doing counter-revolutionary activities at the age of 3, I guess you were kind of set up to be a Green Beret, huh?
I mean, that's the running joke at home. Like, my mom shoved those papers in my diaper as soon as she heard the commies coming up and kicking in the door. And she's like, "Please don't pee on them." And they raided the apartment. They ripped up the couches and took down the half the kitchen. They couldn't find any paperwork. And my mom was like, "This is genius. No one's going to check a baby's diaper."
Wow, dude.
So yeah. But then 2 years later, Reagan administration took us in as political refugees. So
Cool. Yeah. Where'd you
Yeah.
land in the United States?
North Carolina, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So landed in
All
North
right.
Carolina, was there for a couple of years and moved around the states. Became a bartender in DC before joining the Army and going SF.
Ah,
So that is a whole another chapter. We'd need another podcast just to cover the DC adventures.
oh, we might have to have one then, man. But it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, perfect.
So what did you join? Like, did you go in SF right off the street, or did you do some regular Army time like a lot of us did back in the day?
Yeah, so I did. I had a kind of congruent approach. TC in college.
Okay.
Did 3 years of that. I was about to commission. I was like, I'm just not ready to commit to the Army for X amount of years. I was like, I still want some more adventures under my belt, and moved to DC. Became a bartender. Did that for about 2 years, and I'm sitting there, and this the guy comes in. He's angry looking. It's midnight. The bar's already closed, and he comes in, but he's like, no, I'm coming into the bar. Sits down, and I'm like, hey, we're closed. He's like, I still want a steak, and I still want a bottle of wine. I'm like, all right, this guy's going to be interesting. So I called my friends at the steakhouse next door. They drop a steak off. I give him a big old bottle of wine, and I just pick his story. And he never once told me who he was or what he was doing. He disappears. 6 months later, I'm bartending. This guy comes in, tan as cardboard. He's got sand coming out of the cracks. He's got a huge beard. And I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be trouble, right? Because this is a high-end bar. He sits down, and I was like, yeah, I can help you, sir. He's like, yeah, I want that same damn steak and that same damn bottle of wine you gave me 6 months ago. Turns out he was a Green Beret. And so we just became friends. And I was telling him, I was like, look, man, your timing is great because I am looking for a career change. And I really enjoyed ROTC, and just I was one of the first kids that got to go to Malcolm Warfare School when that opened up back in I think 2001. So I liked the Army things. So he tells me all about the 18 X-ray program, which I didn't know anything about. Went to the recruiter the next day. The recruiter's like, he's like rolls his eyes when I tell him I want an 18 X-ray contract. I'm like, why? What's wrong with an 18 X-ray contract? He's like, I've sent 7, none have made it. And I'm like, oh, I'm cocky. I'm like, okay, great. Send me, I'll be your 8th. I'll make it. I'll write you a letter when I'm through. And 2.5 years later, 3 years later, when I'm graduating, I put the my beret on, 18 Delta. I like write a letter to the recruiting station. I was like, hey, forward this to Sergeant Johnson or whoever, and let him know that I made it. But yeah, man, like so, off the street, not off the street, and then in selection though, that was hilarious because when you're filling out your paperwork and everything, and you're surrounded by everybody else. A captain sitting in front of me, he looks around, he's looking at me, and I realize we recognize each other. He was in my ROTC class the year before. And he looks at me and looks at my rank. I'm a private, right? And he's like, "What the f did you do?" Because he's thinking I should have been a major by now. And I'm like, "Oh no, I got out, I got back in. I'm starting from scratch." So
I was
he's
a
like, "Oh
bartender.
man,
Come on,
yeah,
man.
I was a
Give me a break.
bartender. My
Yeah.
adventures were different. So no, it's been great though. It's never you blink. I mean, you blink and 5 years have passed, and you blink twice and 20 years have passed. So it's been amazing.
What groups were you all in the 10th group the whole time, or?
Yep, 10th group. Being the fact that I grew up speaking Polish, learned
Yeah.
Russian real quick. Took German was easy to learn enough. So went to 110 from '09 to about 12,
Nice assignment.
and yeah, it was great. Great first assignment. Hung out there, learned a lot. I was probably gone out of the 3 years. My ex-wife now. Obviously there's a reason, but this makes sense. Out of the 3 years that I was there, I was probably only home for 6 months. Like, that's how busy it was in those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we made the best of it, moved to Colorado. I went back to, stayed in 10th, made a whole career out of it. So,
Wow. You
it's been
don't get
great,
the
yeah.
homestead. You do any SWIC time at Fort Bragg at all?
No, I got lucky.
Wow. You did the entire 20 years in 10th group, bro.
0 years.
Dude. I
I
hate
think,
you.
no, I think numerically, I looked it up. I'm at plus or minus by like 1 or 2, like 24 deployments in 18-ish operational years. And I mean, I've paid the price. I've got 11 surgeries. I had a part of the reason the hero protocol became an actual thing was because it saved my life. Because I took 1,000-pounder uh, when we were evacuating Afghanistan because I was the warrant officer for one of the last special forces teams out of Afghanistan. EOD was just blowing things up like the destruction show that it was. And one of them was 1,000-pounder, and that just wiped out my vestibular nerve, the nerve that controls your mouth. So yeah, we can cover all that later. But 11
Yeah.
surgeries, 24-ish deployments. Like you might skip SWIC, but you're going to get a divorce out of it, a bunch of surgeries, and a lot
Nah.
more TBIs.
No,
Yeah,
the reason I asked is that nobody gets to stay at group for, 20 plus years, dude. You got to go back to the school, which is, I mean, I'm saying it's cool, dude. I
yeah.
just, because you went warrant, you missed a crappy ass sergeant major course I had to go to back in the day, too. So that's good for you, too.
I got
No,
lucky.
what a stellar career, man. So how many times you're in the box?
3 for combat, once for 48 hours because I was dropping some. My buddy calls me. I can't actually tell you the story. Anyways, I won't tell you what was in the box, but I take a box. There's a secret sticker on it. I fly in. I give him the box, and he shakes my hand, and that was it. So technically 3 with like a 48-hour stint there. That's off the books.
Maybe you got a
So
strike for a combat strike for showing
no,
up, man.
no,
So
no, 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 no. But yeah, 3 times there, and the rest were Africa, Europe. They sent us to Alaska for 6 weeks to live with the Inuits.
a lot
That's
of Polish and Russian speakers in Africa. I mean,
yeah, right. Rumor has it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, that was fun though. That was right after. I don't know if you remember a Westgate when Al Shabaab came in and executed everybody in the shopping mall,
well,
and they
yeah, I
like
don't.
200 people died, and 50 of them I think were kids in nursery, right? And like it was brutal. And so I got tasked on an emergency team to go with and help out that security issue.
Yeah.
So 18 Delta, you're employable everywhere. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we know you just came off a deployment, but we really need you to go on another one because you guys are going to be busy. And we were busy. It was, rewarding from like a moral perspective.
No, dude. No, I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely. That's the kind of stuff, especially when you hear about kids being caught. I mean, we got
Yeah.
over
Yeah. Kids,
300
kids.
Nigerian kids missing right now. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
god dang.
It's
I
brutal.
mean, leave them alone. But yeah, I mean, just for the education of our audience, man. I mean, there are 5 jobs in, well, there's five of them in special forces, and our deltas are our medics. So, Yatsek, just give our audience a little bit of background on like these aren't just your medics that slap a band-aid on you, man. These
Yeah.
guys can do some stuff, man. Tell you got a story or two, man. Tell what you.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I've been right. So the 18 Delta course, right? I mean, you made the great point. It's not just a medic course. It's not CLS. Like you are going to be the guy behind enemy lines, taking care of people, working with medicine or herbal medicine, or just hoping for the best. And you've got to know it all because sometimes you're going to be the only medical provider. So in 2 years, just the medic course is 2 years, or 6 months, but it's a 6 month course that you get slammed with 2 years of medicine. And it really struck me on my first rotation when I was walking around doing sutures in ERs. I think the most I put in 174 or 73 sutures in a girl once in Tampa General because she got beat up with a stool, and I've got fourth year residency students like looking over my shoulder because they can't touch the patient. But here I am doing all of it, right? And then my beeper beeps. I'm like, oh, the flight for life's taken off, so I got to go. And then I go jump in flight for life, and then the nurses call because there's a belligerent dude that needs his blood drawn. So we're all jacked up and we go. And then like 2-3 days later, I'm in OBGYN and I'm catching my baby or catching a first baby coming out, right? And then helping in the cesarean. So the theory with an 18 Delta, Special Forces medic, is you're gonna be the medical provider behind enemy line, and you have to know everything. I mean, down to veterinarian medicine, right, and dental care. Um, and then we are 18 Deltas. You're certified, and we run surgery wards. The first time I was in Afghanistan, I had a few extra days to kill, so I went over to Craig and over at Bagram medical facility, and then I'm over there helping the doc pop off this guy's skull cap because he got shot in the head with a sniper round, and I'm sucking out the remnants of his brain, right? So he could get packaged up for transport. And then I'm working the feet and everything else, working them up, and then nursing on the other side of the hospital because I want to be useful. And so, like an 18 Delta isn't just a medic that does CLS and IVs. I could prescribe meds, I could help deliver babies, I could do surgeries, I can do veterinarian medicine too if need be, or we can as 18 Deltas. And so it's really the entirety of anything that could be considered medicine. You're going to be exposed to it in the medic course, and it's phenomenal. It's dirty medicine sometimes, but it works.
So that wasn't a recruiting video, but I will tell you, these guys are amazing, man. I have watched them deliver babies by candlelight, rip teeth out by the hundreds, and like Yatsek said, these guys were literally the only medical professionals within, 100 miles. And we used to do these med readies down in South America. So yeah,
Okay.
so anyways, yeah, give you a little background because I'm sure that background helped you on your way to build the hero protocol. So let's dive into this a little bit. So after 18 missions, 24 years, obviously you had quite a you had some run-ins with concussions and
Hmm.
subconcussive trauma and probably a lot of blast exposure. Tell us
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, tell us about that.
So, and I'll caveat this with like when I say a traumatic brain injury, 'cause I've talked to a few civilians and they're like, oh well, I've never been deployed, so I never got a TBI, and then they're like, oh, but I got a bunch of concussions in football. So the word TBI and concussion, I think we should equate that as an equal right descriptor.
More or
If
less,
you ever
yeah.
seen stars or anything else for the audience to recognize that, but yeah, okay. So first off, the lawyer advised me that, quick disclaimer, nothing I say is medical advice. The HERO protocol is a dietary supplement, not a drug. None of these statements have been evaluated by the FDA and not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and talk with your doctor before you do anything. Right?
Very well written.
That's out of the way. That's going to be the permanent asterisk for the rest of this podcast. But yeah, man, like, when you're in your 20s and 30s, like as I was, like, going and going to the shoot house and blowing things up was just exciting, right? And you don't notice the amount of overpressure that you're getting. Like my head rang, and it was a little kind of floaty after a little while. But I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's just part of the game. It's literally part of the job too. But then when I started hitting around 35 years old, I noticed that the head ringing and the numbness in my brain started lasting a little longer than normal. And I remember coming off one range, we'd shot, in the neighborhood of 100 mortars. The next day we did 100, door charges and other type of explosives. And then the third day we went to the rocket range and shot off like 100 AT4s and Gustavs and Laws. And I came home and I'm standing in front of the house. Get out of the car, and I'm beeping my car fob, beep beep, trying to open the front door. I'm getting pissed off that the car is beeping. I'm like, I was like, stop making noise, damn car! Like, just let me in the house. And then I'm getting angry at the doorknob because the doorknob's not opening because I'm hitting it with the wrong key. And I stop after about a minute. I'm like, shit! Like, this is worse than all the other hundreds of times. And so, I switch the key fob out to the house key, and then I open the house and I go in. I've just got this ringing headache, this numbness that kind of just permeates the whole brain. It kind of felt like a cleaver went right between the front half and the back half of the brain. And there was just a separation there. And I was pissy the next day, like really just snappy, um, and still married, but I'm positive, I'm confident that my inability to process my angers, which were literally inside my own brain. They weren't, it wasn't, I had a bad day at work type thing. It was just like almost like a slight personality shift. Because and I learned this only, last year, we're talking 10 years ago, 5 years ago now. I had a biochemical change due to scar tissue and, all the damage that had physically happened to my brain. And it feels like, when you're kids and you pillow fight, but you get that older kid who like really winds up that pillow and gets you. And, it's no longer just like a bag of fluffy feathers. It feels like they hit you with a bowling ball, and you're like, "Oh, I'm done pillow fighting," like that, but in your brain, for 100 times. And so I've right around 35 is when I noticed that I was angrier, used more curse words, wasn't collaborative, wasn't happy, wasn't patient, right? I wasn't patient with people, and but I wasn't quitting either, right? Like SF, like you either complete the mission or you die trying. Like that's it, and that just became the mantra. And so, fast forward a couple years to 2001, 2021. Sorry, we're one of the last SF teams in Afghanistan. We're the last SF team in Helmand, just blowing up the base as we go. The OD had been instructed to limit their explosions down to 250 pounds, but they were like, well, who's the authority here? And we're short on time. We had literal hours to get out. So they build 6 1,000 pounders and blow them up and just start, rocking them. And it's effing amazing. But by the sixth one, I'm in front of the Mat V, and I wake up and I look, and the mushroom cloud is fading. And I'm just like, yeah, I've been knocked out for a while inside a Mat V from, an MSD of 250 for a 250-pound charge, but it was 1,000-pound charge, right? And so that's when I realized, I was like, oh, like I've actually been officially knocked out. And the next day, sitting there, the mission is we're blowing up the base, we're burning the base, get out. And I'm sitting there and I eat my morning oatmeal, and I look and the oatmeal's falling out of my mouth and it's hitting the table. I'm like, this is the stupidest oatmeal I've ever dealt with. Like, why is this oatmeal not doing its job? And then I'm like, wait, and my 18 Delta brain kicks in. I was like, wait a second. So I take a scoop and I put it in my mouth, and it just falls out. And I'm like, oh shit, my mouth doesn't work. Like, that sensation you get when a dentist numbs you up. Like everything from here to include my tongue wasn't working. So however big that blast was that came in from the left side, knocked out my ability to talk, and to use my tongue to eat oatmeal. And I was like, I did the operator thing. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna chill out, take an easy day, lock myself in the room. I'll tell the captain because I was the warrant officer. So I was like, hey, like I got rocked. I'm alive, but I really need to take care of this. And so, but you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night. You're pounding ribbits just to stay alive. Yeah,
Ribbons,
right.
dude.
Those didn't go away in 2021.
No.
Um,
Wow, they're still there.
yeah,
God.
and so I'm sure the Taliban loved him too now, but they found a
Yeah.
Connex full of ribbits somewhere. But yeah, and so after 2 3 days, it wasn't getting better, and I had developed a stutter that I never had before. And so all this starts getting worse. I come back to the States, mission's over, and Afghanistan literally collapsing behind us as we're flying out. And I come home super angry, super frustrated, super short tempered. But what's crazy about it is now, 4 or 5 years later, looking back on it, I thought I was fine. Right? I was like, no, no, this is just normal. It's the toad boiling theory, right? Like, you put the frog in the water, turn up the temperature slowly on the boiling water, and it won't jump out. That's what had happened to the career's worth of concussions and traumatic brain injuries and subconcussive events, et cetera, that I'd gotten. Um, I just hadn't noticed because I was always in go mode. But I get a phone call one day. They're like, "Hey, where are you?" I was like, "I'm at home." They're like, "You haven't been to work in 4 months. Like, where are you?" I was like, "Oh, huh." I was like, "No, we just got off deployment." They're like, "Yeah, that was 4 months ago." And I was
What?
just like, and so I look at myself in the mirror. I got a big old beard. I'm just like, "Oh shit." And so my ability to tell time was gone, right? Time, the medical term is time dilation, right? So one day felt to me like either a year or a minute, I couldn't tell. And things like paying the bills started to fall off. I went through a divorce at this point, no surprise. Couldn't pay the bills on time, couldn't do the laundry. When I did laundry, I did it wrong. I wouldn't check my pockets. Car keys were in them, wallet was in them, and then I'd go to my closet, and I'd be like, "All right, I'm ready to get dressed because I'm an adult." And I'm like, "I don't have any clothes." So I'd look in the washing machine, and all the clothes had been there for a week, right? So now I have to rerun them because they're all smelly, moldy. And I'm like, "Oh, this isn't going well. Like, there's a actual problem now." So finally, little things too, like going to the shooting range at this point. Shooting an M4 would give me a headache to the point where I'd have a migraine the next day, right? Just an M4. And I was just like, as a medic, I can't former Agent Delta. This is bad. This is beyond bad. Obviously, I need to take a humble pie moment. I quietly walked over to my boss. I was like, "Hey, no joke. Something's wrong. It's not just, you know, the Afghanistan blues, right? Like, I think I am like effed up at this point." And so, 22 went to Intrepid, did the whole gamut of um, evaluations, and they found that my vestibular nerve, the nerve that controls the balance, right? So if you swing around on a swing and you get dizzy, it's because your vestibular nerve's going and giving you information. Well, this one was shot, which would explain why for the past 2 months I've been falling downstairs and walking into walls.
Mm.
It's when a 39, 40-year-old man who was at the top of his career is walking down the stairs with a plate of spaghetti, and then the next thing I know is the spaghetti's doing this. I'm horizontal to the stairs. The spaghetti's arcing through the air. There's spaghetti splatter going everywhere, and then I go bump, dunk, 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 and just lay there as spaghetti just rains all over me, and I'm like, I am effed up, right? Like because I can't perceive balance at this point, so I can't jump anymore. I can't communicate effectively because I have stutter, and I can't remember what I'm trying to communicate because all the hardware up here is all mixed up. So finally, when I go to the Intrepid Center, they do all the neuro batteries, and they're like, "Yeah, your vestibular nerve is functioning at like 25-30% of what it should be. Uh, your stutter, the Army's like, we don't know what to do with that." And then the neuroscientist, it was supposed to be a 2 hour like IQ test to try to figure out where the brain is misfiring. She ended up running it for 9 hours. She was like, "No, no, no." And she was excited because she found out the part of my brain that had been knocked out by this shockwave um, was my processing center. So I was effectively running a DOS code or Windows 95, right? And in 2022 at this point. And she was then like, there's a 15-point deficit in my IQ processing speed. And she was like, it is undeniably your IQ processing speed that have got knocked out. And she's like, "That's your executive function. That's why you can't." And she's like, "What color socks are you wearing?" I was like, "Two different socks." But simple things like that. And I was just like, oh man, tie it to the fact that I have responsibilities as a dad, right? And I'm trying to hide all this from my kids. who are trying to now compensate for me because I forget when the soccer is. I forgot where their school is, which order to go in, which kid gets dropped off first, and they would have to start coaching me. And I'm like, I'm a 65-year-old man in a 40-year-old man's body, and I'm not trending well. Like the 11th surgeries, great. Hardware updates, got them, bolts, screws, other people's ligaments. I can deal with that. The brain is your own thing, like your entity. Like you exist in your brain. And so to go to Intrepid and met a bunch of great doctors and everything. Everybody had a VA or Army approved solution, right? But none of them were working. As an 18 Delta who was trained in unconventional medicine and treatments behind enemy lines, because if you have too many patients, now you're a tactical liability or strategic liability, right? If you and I can't call Walgreens when I'm behind enemy lines. And one of the tenets of special forces medicine training is if you solve the right problem, the body will create its own solutions and heal itself, right? Whereas, Western medicine has its pros, but a con of it, I guess, to say, is that they want to chase the symptoms and heal the symptoms because that makes money. And it's also easier to heal the symptoms. You get more immediate feedback. Whereas if you heal the problem, then then the human's no longer a patient, right? We don't need to digress in that. But you also can't heal the problem if the treatment's not approved, right? Especially in the DoD. And so for my ear, let me remind you, I was falling downstairs as a grown ass man. There's a thing called vestibular therapy. And so all they do is they take your head and they shake it up and down, left and right. And they try to it's archaic, it's barbaric. It's probably invented in like the 1700s. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I grab this nurse and I throw her off me because it feels like someone's stabbing a knife in my ear. And then I throw open the wastebasket. I'm like, explain to me medically why you just effing did that. And she's like, oh my God, he's angry. She runs away. Another guy comes in. I'm like, explain to me why she just grabbed my head and shook me like a rag doll. He's like, well, that's vestibular therapy. I was like, why? I was like, this is the same as if like you came in with a broken bone arm to a doctor and said, hey, I got a broken arm. So he takes your arm and shakes it and says, oh, well, if we deaden the nerve, it's not going to
You
hurt
won't
as
feel it.
much.
Yeah.
You won't feel it. I would expect everybody to punch the doctor in the mouth, right? I did not do anything violent other than violently throwing up in the trash can. And so I was like, no, you can't do that to me. Like I'm going to, and like, I knew that what was going to happen to me. I was like, I'm going to be out for the next, I'm going to have a headache. I'm going to throw up again tonight. I'm going to wake up tomorrow really pissed off and dizzy. And for the next 2-3 days, I'm just going to be a effing vegetable. I was like, no more vestibular therapy. It's archaic. Do something better. I'm like, we don't have anything better. We can give you a hearing aid. I was like, no. I was like, what about the mouth? And they're like, well, the fact that I'm stuttering. And they're like, well, we can't do anything for that. I was like, okay. I was like, what about the fact that I can't remember anything or executively function, run at like, optimal IQ speeds? And they're like, you can carry a notebook around to like record your notes better. And I'm
These
just like,
people.
yeah. You know, and I have sympathy for them. They are limited by the type of medical care they are allowed to provide, right? And the VA and the DoD is a very conservative organization because it has to deal with 1 million people. So the treatment has to be correct. I can respect that. But, someone once did the math in the warrant course and they're like, hey guys, we're worth like $3 million now. Like, between the Q course, our career, our paychecks, and now this warrant course and all the other courses that we're going through, we're $1 million men. And right, so SF has an incentive to send guys to these TBI clinics because they're literally multi-million dollar, assets walking around, and one injury that no one can see is the brain, right? But then you get personality shifts and everything else. And so finally, this goes on for about 6 months, and the Army's like, look, you can't shoot, you can't jump out of planes because you can't risk another TBI. Performance at work is terrible, even though you were great before. They're like, yeah, you're kind of useless to us now. It's sort of like a 240 barrel on a machine gun that gets burnt out. And they're like, oh well, it's useless now. We're gonna just throw a new one in. Like I felt like that. Like I'd been going cyclic for years, and I was like, okay. I was like, I've seen this. It's a profession. Professional stuff happens. And I was like, if you med board me, because my brain's still not working after a year. And even after your treatments, what do I do about my broken brain? Because right now I'm quite confident I cannot stock a shelf at Home Depot if they told me to. Yeah, and they're like, oh, well, carry a notebook and hold the handrail when you go up and down the stairs so you don't fall down them so much. I'm like, you mother effers. I was like, okay, done. And so, oh, and then they were like, oh, but you seem angry. I was like, yeah, I'm angry right now because you just told me I have, a 1991 DOS powered brain with all these other ailments, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And you're going to kick me out of the army at my 18th year. Like why? And so, oh, you seem angry about this. Do you want to go see a therapist? They could give you antidepressants. I was like, what are you treating? I was like, I have the right to be angry. And so I'm like, okay, this is the limit. I'm going to stop being, the bird that's trying to fly through a glass window. I'm done, right? And so I go home and I take a huge out whiteboard. I'm like, all right, what are my symptoms? And so I just start drawing out my symptoms. I was like, oh, these are very Alzheimer's-y symptoms. Okay. And these are very Parkinson's symptoms. Okay. And these are PTSD symptoms because like I'm waking up at midnight and I can't go to sleep till 2 in the morning. That's probably screwing with my sleep. All right. And these are the other symptoms. And so I'm just, and like literally, I'm owning it. I'm like, the other symptoms are that I just can't keep myself accountable because I can't get myself to that point. And so I drew out my symptoms and I was like, you know what? So it looked like a flower puddle kind of thing. I was like, I'm just going to treat. So I'm going to find natural supplements to treat for this. And so, I started researching what actually happens during a concussion process. How does the brain cell down to the cell? How does it fall apart? How then? Not only does it how it fall apart, because there's plenty of research on how things fall apart in the military. Right? We have hundreds of years of research on how damage occurs to humans. Ironically, we don't have hundreds of years of research of how we fix it. And so I started researching everything else, and I did have an amazing experience, and I thank God because this was pivotal, probably saved my life. When I was doing my medical rotations in Tampa General back in like '07, we were intubating coma patients because back in the day you would intubate, and so we'd do that rotation, and the coma doc was there. I was like, hey, like I have a theory. I have a theory that getting hit in the head, just having a headache, all the way to being knocked out into a concussion or into a coma and turned into a vegetable, it's the same injury. It's just on a linear spectrum, right? A little headache, big headache, seeing stars, getting knocked out, being knocked out, and then being in a coma. I was like, so what do you do? Because my guys are going to be exposed to repeated blasts. And is this preventable? And the doc's like, well, your jobs are going to be really complex. But it's like for my coma patients, when they show up, I recommend that they get 10 to 20 grams of omega 3s a day. And then after 7 to 10 days, they pop out of their coma, like the ones that have the right to. He's like, but or the ability to. And he's like, it's really odd to me. There's no FDA studies on this, but he's like, consistently 7 to 10 days, these guys pop out of the coma. And I'm just like, huh. So that number has never left my brain. And now fast forward 20 years later, and I'm sitting there like, huh, maybe I should do something with omega 3s. And so I start researching the crap out of omega 3s and how they work because that math isn't wrong. You got to imagine this 10 grams for 7 days is 70 grams of omega 3s, right? 140 on the higher end. And I'm like, okay, what's so magical about that number? And I research, I find out your brain, my brain, most everybody's brain, other than like little people's brain, have 70 grams of phospholipids in their brain. And so what this doctor was inadvertently doing was getting like literally doing an oil change for these coma patients' brains. And once they had a complete oil change at roughly the 70-gram level, the oil change did something to the brain and they popped out of their coma. And I was like, well, that's great. So I was like, get on Amazon, didn't realize how many bottles I'd ordered on Amazon because I didn't have my executive function back. And so like I had like 16 bottles of omega 3 show up the next
Got
day.
your own pharmacy going.
I'm like, I'm just going to experiment. So fish oil, krill oil, every oil, whatever oil. Found out that 10 grams of omega 3s a day will give you diarrhea. So don't do 10 grams of omega 3s a day.
There you go.
But then I would also find, and I felt a little better. And I was like, oh, this isn't this. I was like, the math works, right? But the instant I stopped doing it, all my symptoms started. I was like, okay, so I got to keep on a high dose, but on a manageable dose. And so I started doing that. But I also started finding out that different omegas have different things. And so I was like, that's not unusual. That's not normal. So I started researching manufacturing processes. I've been manufacturing the difference between fish oil, krill oil, and algae oil. And we can go into this more on how I designed the hero protocol specifically, but like I had to find, dude, because I was trying to save my own brain. the highest grade non-pharmaceutical omega-3, because the omega-3 that the Army issues you, right, as a prescription, is low grade shit. It is
Low is
the
better.
lowest bidder for the highest price. And, if the Army wants to do anything next to Motrin, it needs to get with the highest grade omega-3, not fish oil. It has to be algae. I will advocate for that for the rest of my life for
Algae
reason.
oil.
Yeah, and
I'm writing it down, man.
all right, yeah, yeah. And so once I started getting my, 70-ish, 60-ish grams of omega-3s uh, in my brain, I was like, all right, what next? So it's like, well, I've kind of got like the Parkinson's thing going on because my vestibular nerve shot. It's not communicating well. I still got a stutter. I'm just like, okay. Oh, tinnitus is through the roof and headaches. I'm like, okay. Well, started researching. There's NAD, NMN, NADH. It's a component that we all have as kids. That's why everybody thinks clearly, can process information in vast amounts. But as you get older, it starts dropping off around 50. And it started getting really popular as a rejuvenation anti-aging supplement.
Hmm.
So I started researching the crap out of it and like where it interfaces at your cellular level. And it goes into the mitochondria. And it's basically like a fuel oil injection cleaner for the mitochondria. And this goes to the 18 delta theory that start if you can solve the problem, all the symptoms will get fixed. And so I was like, okay. So I started taking NMN, NAD. I started just experimenting. I was the guinea pig. And I started to feel a little clearer. I could start having thoughts that would string together. I was like, okay, after about a week or two. I was like, all right, what's next? I was like, well, I'm looking at my board. I'm just crossing things off, crossing things off. And this is taking months. I'm like, okay, I'm still waking up at midnight and I'm patrolling the house because my dog farted. The branch hit rubbed against the roof, or a car drove by that I didn't recognize. And I'm like, okay, why is that happening? And I was thinking back, and I was like, all right, obviously it's some post traumatic stress type things, but my heart's not racing. I just can't go to sleep, and it's always happening around midnight and lasts for about 2 hours. And so I was like, all right, I don't want to take Ambien, I don't want to take Benadryl, I don't want to drink, right? Because alcohol is a numbing agent. Most people drink in order to calm the nervous system down to get to sleep. It's like I don't want to do those things because those have byproduct effects. And so all right, so through another beautiful happenstance, you want to talk about God lining people up in your life. My cousin's married to the CEO of a mushroom pharmaceutical. So I get her on the phone. I was like, hey, what do I do? And I was like, how do I interrupt my ability to this issue? What could keep me to bed, keep me to sleep at with like a natural supplement, right? It's like a mushroom. And her dad wrote a bunch of books on the benefits of actual, mushrooms, not psilocybin, but mushrooms. And so she told me I did. So she put me down the path. I started doing all the research and I found a blend of mushrooms that will bind with the cortisol and the adrenaline in your system. Because what the hell have we done as an operator specifically? What have I done for nearly 20 years? I've woken up at 6 p.m. to operate at midnight, to have whether I'm jumping out of helicopters, doing long range movement on snowmobiles in Alaska, or doing a litany of other things. I was like, what am I having? I'm having an adrenaline rush from midnight to 4 a.m. And then I go to bed around 6 a.m., right? Everything's inverse. So after doing this for about 10, 15 years, I realized my adrenal glands don't know not to produce adrenaline. And then my cortisol glands don't know not to dump a bunch of cortisol because that's what they've done, because they've literally done that to keep me alive. If they hadn't done that, I would have been dead many times over. And so it's biochemically, genetically infused in me to have an adrenaline rush near midnight. And I was like, so I take all these mushrooms and I find the concoction that works because they bind to adrenaline and cortisol. And so they keep it sub-threshold. So when I take it and I go to bed, it'll bind and prevent them from. It's like kids that are like frat party kids. Instead of giving them a Red Bull at night and letting them party, you tell them just go to bed, right? Give them a glass of warm milk and they'll go to bed. But that's what my adrenaline glands were doing because that's what they've done. And so through we're talking 6 months, easy. I had been experimenting with myself, and so finally get to a point where I'm like, okay, now the multivitamin. Right, the multivitamin is pissing me off, right? Because everybody knows about vitamin D and K, and it's good for you, right? I was like, but the multivitamin is pissing me off because I take it in the morning, and it gives me that upset, hungover feeling, and I don't like that feeling for like an hour. And like, just kind of feels like it's burning your stomach and makes you feel nauseous. So I'm just like, you know what? I bet if I just took it at night and brush my teeth, take this protocol that I've like, it's not like, it's a mix of pills now. I'm going to take them. I'm going to, even if I have the stomach issue, I'm going to be asleep. So who cares? Right. And so I go to bed. I wake up the next effing morning. I feel amazing for 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, that was weirdly amazing. I haven't felt that since I was in college, right? Like in my 20s. So I don't think anything about it. Go through my day. I struggle through it. The next day, I wake up. I feel better for 10 minutes. The next day, 15. By the end of the seventh day, mind you, seventh day, I'm onboarding 60 grams of omegas, taking all my NAD and NMN mix. Mushrooms are kicking in because now they're kicking in at night, and my multivitamins are kicking in because now I'm taking them at night. On the morning of the seventh day, I woke up and I said, "Huh, I just had a dream." And I'm thinking about it. It's like I haven't had a dream in 5 years, and I'm just like,
Wow.
that's interesting. And then the rest of the day was effing amazing. And so I keep doing it, and then I realized I'm like, oh my god, like it has to be not only the formula, but it has to be when I'm taking it. So I call my sister, who's in the middle of her PhD. She's a genius. She scored perfect 1600 across the SATs. I'm like, hey,
Dang.
you're the smartest person I know. You have read more actual research papers than researchers. Tell me why, when I started taking this at night, within 7 days, everything started getting better. And she'd been only loosely following what I'd been doing. So she was like, well, this happens. And then she was like, I'll look into it. I'll get back to you. That afternoon, she gets back to me. She's like, your glymphatic system kicks in overnight when you sleep. It only kicks in when you're dreaming because the dream fluctuations allow the glymphatic system to clean out waste out of your brain. I'm like, okay. And she's like, I bet your concoction, timed with when you took it, timed with your lymphatic system, is allowing it to kick back in. Like, it's like putting a fresh battery in a dead car, and then you hear the engine kick, and then the power starts going, and you get a big plume of exhaust. And I was like, huh, yeah, you might be onto something. And so I was like, so what do I do? She's like, just keep taking it. And she's like, honestly, I don't know. No one's done research on when to take anything, but she's like, based off what you told me, based off these other extravagant research papers, and my studies, dog studies, old people studies, like very little pieces of non-fully FDA certified studies, but they're indicators. It's like having a compass, and you're like, oh, I'm going to maybe follow it this way, right? And so I followed that protocol for about a month, and by the end of the month, I felt phenomenal, and I stopped. And I looked, I was at work. I stopped. I looked back. I was like, I didn't fall down those stairs. I was like, I didn't even notice that I was going up and down stairs, and I didn't fall down them. That's what is magical about this moment.
You know.
Like, when your win is that you're not falling down stairs, like, well, you don't have a very low bar. So for a couple months, things started getting so much better that I go back to the Intrepid clinic. I'm like, all those tests that I failed dramatically and that you guys were, you know, considering recommending me get kicked out of the army for, run them again, all of them. And the same nurse that did the vestibular tests on my ear and that I almost like judo through over my shoulder, she's like, I'm not going to touch you. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's understand. Like, she still remembered me.
Yeah, I bet.
And so the main guy comes in. And so the way they do this, right? So there's an eye chart, you know, 10 feet away, and you sit in front of the eye chart, and then they shake your head like this, and then they shake your head like this, like left to right, up and down, as you read the eye chart up and down. And whatever line you stop at is how bad your vestibular injury is, right? Mind you, I couldn't even get started when they started. And so I was like, go. So he starts shaking my head, and I'm like, A, B, C, D, blah, 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 blah. And then I start reading it backwards. And I start reading back down, back up, back down, back up. I was like, all right, how many times? He's like, you've been at this for 2 minutes. I was like, I feel phenomenal. I was like, shake it the other way. So he shakes it side to side. 2 minutes. I'm like, I'm just reading numbers. And he stops and he like stops and he steps away from me. And he's like, how are you feeling? I was like, you know that fun feeling when you jump off like a merry-go-round as a kid and you're like, what next? It's like, that's what I feel like. A little dizzy, but I'm not throwing up. My headaches are gone. And he's like, oh. So then they put me in a balancing, like, so it looks like you step into a giant, like, living room sized golf ball and you like step into it. And the feet pedals move and like optics are moving and everything else. And I am sitting in there calm as a button. The first time I did that, but now nearly, however many months earlier, I fell out and the guy had to catch me because I couldn't take the visual input from the feed inputs.
Mm.
But now I'm sitting there like a fighter pilot. I'm like, okay, is anything supposed to be happening? And like the test is over and I look back behind me and he's like back there, arms almost ready to catch me. He's like, how'd you do that? I was like, I feel effing amazing. And so they ran all the numbers. The vestibular nerve had regrown, or not, I can't say regrown. And this vestibular nerve results were 150% better than before. And at best, his vestibular nerve, I had to research this, is spontaneous vestibular nerve recovery is maybe at best 10%, right? And I hadn't had any vestibular nerve therapy. And then the guy, he turns to me, he's like, oh, guess what? I was like, what? He's like, your stutter's gone. I was like, oh, it is. He's like, how'd you do that? I was like, I don't know. Right. And so, because my theory was that vestibular nerve injury and however it was affecting my mouth was acting kind of like Parkinson's, where the actual sheath on the
Mm.
nerve cell was being damaged. The nerve ends were okay, but it's sort of like having a short in your electrical wire. And
Right.
yeah, so I somehow something I did in that protocol had addressed that. But I have to disclaimer that that was only my personal experience, right? Not medical advice. This continues. I go back to the neuroscientist. I was like, hey, run that entire IQ test on me again. It had been at least 6 months. I think the statistical average is you might get a 2-point IQ test increase if you have another test 6 months out. She runs it, 15 effing point jump, right? I went from Forrest Gump to back to where I was. And she looks at me. She's like, what'd you do? I was like, I did this protocol. And she's like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, I know. I was like, I'm agreeing with you. It doesn't make sense. But that's the only thing I did. And she's like, she's like, I'm going to have to submit this to higher, right? Like from her research buddies. She's like, this guy is claiming he took a bunch of natural supplements and got better. I was like, huh. And so I went around the clinic. I was like, does anybody want to know what's in this protocol? Can I give this out to you guys for free? Because I walked out of the clinic into the hallway, and like 6 of my buddies were in the hallway. I was like, oh, you're here, you're here, you're here. And they're like, oh yeah, I've been here for like 6 months. I've been here for 12 months. I should. Another guy just got there. I'm like, oh. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, well, they can't do anything for me. So in order to deal with how angry I am, they're going to give me art therapy. I was like, what the F is art therapy going to do for your brain? They're like, I don't know. Maybe it's going to make me less angry. I was like, with like paper mache? I was like, we're adults here, right? Like it's like if you went to a pilot who's an airline pilot and told it, he has an injury. And you're like, oh, just do paper mache, the broken arm theory, right? Like, well, we can't fix the arm, but here's some art therapy for you,
Make some
right?
wallets.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, make some duct tape wallets, right?
Yeah.
But it was such a frustrating experience. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, not only have I fixed myself, as I understand it, and as the army has figured out that I have fixed it, I realized the army didn't care. They genuinely didn't give a shit because it didn't fall into their parameter of capacity. They
Mm.
couldn't do anything about it. And so I'm not blaming them. They just couldn't do anything with it. I might as well have given them a brick of gold. Couldn't have done anything with it. And so, but then being in the hallway and seeing all my buddies out there, I'm like, well, I'm fine now. But what about my guys? I spent 10 years of my life in a career as an 18 Delta, willing to put myself in front of bullets or between bullets in the body to save my buddy. And so here I am sitting like, oh, and so I was like, hey, is anything you're doing here working? And my one buddy was like, no, F no. He's like, art therapy is fun, but that doesn't solve the fact that I can't sleep. I can't talk. I bump into walls
Want to kill him.
and I want to, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you sound like me 6 months ago. I'm like, hey, I've got this thing, like, let me get back to you on this thing. He's like, okay. So I go home, I talk to some people, I tell them what my problem is. I have this protocol and it seems to have worked for me dramatically, but I have a bunch of buddies who need it. And they're like, okay, so you need to patent it. You need to, launch a company. For liability purposes. You need to do all these things. I run the numbers because, Special Forces Green Beret, I can figure anything out. Right? I run the numbers. I just do checklists. I'm like, okay, shit, I need $75,000. So I look around. I'm like, I don't like this house. and I'd rather save my friends and do something, meaningful with life. So I was like, all right. So I call a realtor. I'm like, I need to sell my house. And they're like, okay. So they sell the house. I move into an apartment. I take, the money that I have made from the apartment or the sale, get a patent, get a trademark, launch the company, talk to manufacturers across America, and I get uh, the right ones who are willing to work with me because I can't afford these 10,000 unit production lines, right? I'm not GNC. I'm like, no, no, I only need 100, right? Because I only have like 50 buddies, and I'm probably gonna want to give them some more. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just trying to help my buddies, right? Like, what's this? What's so effing complicated to understand? I want to make my buddies not drink until they pass out because they can't sleep any other way. I want them to stop yelling at their kids, and I want them to enjoy life again because I knew these guys 10 years earlier before their versions of explosions. They're great guys. They're funny. They're hilarious. They're smart. They're capable. But now they're walking around shuffling in little slippers looking like old people patients down these hallways, not getting better and being told art therapy or antidepressants are probably the most effective treatment they can get. And so the one manufacturer's like, okay, we'll do it. We'll figure it out for you. And so I run an initial production. I get the company at this point, it's called the Hero Protocol because it's a protocol. But I was like, no, no, no. Everybody that's injured in this capacity has been a hero in one version or another. And I start giving it to my buddies. And 2 to 4 weeks later, I started getting emails and text messages like, hey, I had my first dream. That was cool. I haven't had a dream in 10 years. I'm like, oh, that happened to me in 7 days. Or, oh, it happened to me in 10 days. Another one was like, hey, my migraines are gone. And I was like, well, that's good. They're like, well, that's what's crazy about it is I had really bad migraines for 2 weeks. All of a sudden, they started fading away when I was on your ear protocol. I couldn't believe that it was your protocol, so I went off it, and within 3 days, my migraines came back. So I went back on the protocol. The next day, my migraines were gone, and they're like, "So I need to order another 3 a month's worth." I'm like, "Okay, yeah." I was like, I'll have to run another production line because I'm out because so many Green Berets were coming to me. One wife calls me. She's like, "Thank you for getting my husband back. He's not yelling. He's sitting with the kids. I actually heard him laugh." And I was like, "Shit!" Like this is no longer just about me, and this is no longer just about my buddy. This is about their families. This is about the kids who were scared to talk to dad because dad was having a
Circumstance,
bad day
true.
from coming to work, right? Stress, biochemical stress, et cetera else. And so I'm like, shit, like I started thinking about it and I started laughing because I'm talking to another friend. This is about a year and a half later. And hold on, let me get the water. Right. So I'm talking to a buddy that, hey, I've stumbled into something. I think it's really actually doing something positive. What do I do next? And he looks at me, he's like, you do know you just graduated from Oxford, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, you do know that 3 years ago, two-ish years ago, the army was considering kicking you out because you couldn't find the right pairs of socks. I was like, yeah. But as soon as my brain got kicked back into big gear, I was in Europe on a vacation, ended up talking to an Oxford person. They're like, you should definitely apply. And so I was on the protocol. Like in my ramp up, I was, heavy dosing myself and I got through Oxford because I was on the protocol. And what's ironic is as I was dating a woman at this time, she made actually fun of me. She was like, "Oh, you and your brain pills." And I was like, "Oh, I'm kind of I don't want to be I'm still mad. I don't want to come off as like weak, right? No, I don't need these brain pills. I'm fine now." So I got off, my brain pills. And 2 or 3 months later, like, I was angry, I was frustrated, et cetera else, and she pissed me off and we broke up, right? And then I was just like, "Wait, I was angry, I was acting out of step with myself." Went right back on the hero protocol. Within a month, I was back to feeling great. Go on to, publish I think in 1 year, I published 4 books, right? Wrote and published 4 books. I did the math, it's over 1,000,000 words.
Really?
Yeah,
Good for
and
you.
they won a bunch of awards, and so I started laughing. I was like, "Oh, like there's another component to getting better, which is your support system, right?" And I went back to my whiteboard and dried out, but like, that component of like human accountability, like you got to take it. You got to want to be surrounded by people who are patient enough to let you take it, right? I was doing great, and then I got influenced by the woman I was trying to impress and date or be with because she made fun of me, right? Like my ego got hurt. And so I was like, no, I'm not injured.
Ego.
I don't need these
Ego,
anymore.
man.
My damn
Ego.
ego, right? So that
Yeah.
human component of my ego got me to regress back to
Hurt
being a
yourself.
jackass. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh, okay. Humility is a big one. I
Very
have
big.
to be willing to tell myself when I'm not doing well. And it's sort of like looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, oh, I need to go back to the gym. I've gained a few pounds, right? It's that same kind of concept, right? You can't just buy looser pants. And so I got all that together, and guys are getting better, and the business is building up. And I'm like, I have to kind of certify. How do I prove that this is actually happening? And so, do you know Dr. Chris Free with operator syndrome? Have you
Yes,
ever heard of
sir.
that?
Yeah, he's been on the show.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I emailed him. I was like, I got nothing to do, nothing to lose. I emailed him, hey, Dr. Free, love your podcast, love your stuff. Can we talk? I'm an 18 Delta, just graduated from Oxford, and I think I stumbled on something amazing. And so we start talking. We're having a video call about a week later. I'm like, Doc Free, this is what I've got. And he starts asking me everything. He's like, yeah, I take all the supplements too. I was like, yeah, but when do you take it? He's like, during the day, in the morning. I was like, I started laughing. He's like, I'm laughing at, the situation, not at him. I'm like, think about this. I was like, if you took a marathon runner and you gave him a bowl of spaghetti and you said, hey, I want you to carb load while running, and the marathon runner was running his marathon while eating pasta, we would all look at him like he was an idiot, right? But if we all take our supplements in the morning when we're aware of it, and then our brain is running at full speed, running a marathon during the day, it's actually not absorbing nutrients other than sugar, water, and basic running needs. The brain primarily, through research, absorbs all its nutrients at night. So why wouldn't we take our supplements at night? Marathon runner carb loads the days before the race, not the morning of the race. And we're doing the exact same thing with our nutrients for the brain. And so I was like, and like once I hit that, and once I was telling Dr. Free, his mouth opens, he's like, you might be onto something. I was like, oh, I know I'm onto something. I've got like 20 Green Berets telling me I'm onto something. I built a company because they told me I'm onto something. And so he helps me create a market survey. I think I forwarded you some of the charts off that survey, and the results start coming back. And it's called the NSI, so Neuro Behavioral Symptom Inventory. It's 22 questions, ranked 0 to 4. Are you feeling dizzy? How often do you feel dizzy? Like, do you have frustrations with things? How's your management of pain and whatnot? And so he walks me through how to run a market survey because I've never done this before. And I reached back out to a bunch of other guys. I was like, hey, if I give you a hero protocol for a month, will you take a day 0 survey, a day 15 survey, and a day 30 survey? And they all say yes. I got some MMA fighters on there. I got a retired general on there. 11 people were on this survey. All of them within 30 days had their symptoms drop. Now, mind you, the average score for your NSI, it goes from 0 to 88. 88 is terrible. 0 means you don't have any problems whatsoever. 20 and below is generally really good. It's a functional number. Anything over 20 to 40 means, you've got problems. You may notice them. 40 and above means you've got problems and other people notice them. The average score for those 11 people was 44. And they were on the protocol, and within a month, the average score for all 11 people dropped to 22.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, and I talked to Dr. Free, and I reached back out to him like a month and a half later. I was like, hey, I did what you told me to do. I got the numbers back. And he's like, what were the numbers? I was like, yeah, NSI score drop of about 22.9. And he's quiet for a minute. I'm like, is that good or is that bad? And he's like, a score of change of 8 over the course of 12 months is considered clinically amazing. He's like, you did 22 points in 30 days. I was like, so that's good, right? I still don't know what I'm doing, right? And so he's like, yeah, it's great. And so he's like, we're going to figure some things out. So I started reaching out to other researchers. Dr. Lewis, who found out he actually did a research paper in 2011 or 2014. The Army wanted to research omegas, right? Go
Mm.
figure. The same thing I was rediscovering in 2022. He had already proven back in like the early, in 2011, 2014 timeframe. And there's a stunning piece of information that 60% of the people that committed suicide in the Army had low omega 3s, right? That's not an accidental number, right? 17 to 22 veterans are killing themselves every day. There's one dead veteran right now in the time that we've been talking. His research comes out, and back then he gives it to the army. The army's like, "Oh, this is interesting," and then they just shelve it. They're like, "Oh, this is too difficult to implement."
They actually told him to stop his studies, and, yeah, yeah, he came on the show, they said, you were gonna cease and desist," and,
See,
yeah,
so yeah, the conspiracy, or maybe it's just we're not going to give it a word. There's a problem.
yeah,
Um, so now I'm talking to Dr. Lewis, and he's going through my form, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "I do the same thing." I was like, "Yeah, but when do you give it to your guys?" And he's like, "Daytime, because that's when they remember. That's when they get their day going." I was like, "Take it at night. Take it at night. I don't care even if you take the hero protocol. Take it at night." And he starts taking it at night. Guess what happens 7 to 10 days in? He starts having dreams, which means, so when you have a dream, it means your REM cycle's kicked in. You're in the deepest sleep you can get into, and you cannot have glymphatic function without dreams or without REM. And so you're like, holy smokes! Like if you can activate the REM cycle to support the glymphatic system in a population that is already hyper injured or problem, it might be as simple as take your damn supplements at night. And so I'm sitting back one day, like after all, I'm talking to world class doctors. I'm just a burnt out 18 Delta, now, warrant officer who's on the tail end of his career. By the by luck and the skin of his teeth and determination, discovered some things. And now I'm
no
talking
luck.
to world class doctors, and I'm just like, and then I'm giving it to Green Berets and they're getting better. And so has this ever happened before? And I remember a story. Have you ever heard of Semmelweis? He's a 90s doctor in Austria.
Okay, yeah,
So today, we would never even imagine a doctor coming in to do a surgery on you. He's covered in blood, dead body parts, and then helping you give birth or doing a surgery on you, right? But in the 1850s, that's exactly what Dr. Semmelweis discovered, was that doctors were going in the morning, working on morgue patients, right, dead patients, trying to learn anatomy, and then afterwards, they would go and deliver babies in the afternoon. The death rate of all the women that gave birth in that hospital in the 1850s was about 50% because they would die a week later from an infection. He's like, that's not accidental. So he watched these doctors. He's like, mind you, bacteriology and virology didn't come out till like the 1890s, right? So he was 30 years ahead of his time, but he could piece the algebraic equation together that if doctors are mess with dead people and then help give birth, the moms die a week later, really high rates. And so he was like, okay, I don't know why, but let's start with the blood on your hands. And so he said,
wow,
doctors have to wash their hands in lime water, that's basic disinfectant, before treating any other patients. The very next month, the death rate of the in the maternity ward dropped to 10%, from 50% to 10%, just because they were
that's
no longer
insane.
transferring infections, right? And when he came out with this information, the doctors looked at him like he was an asshole for insulting their ego. And they're like, no. Yeah, they're like, there's no way we are the problem. These are the hands of God, like we've gone to school. We're, graduated individuals. And so he got actually laughed out of, the hospital, the medical situation. And it wasn't until 30 years later that virology and bacteriology confirmed what he'd known all along. And they were like, oh, we should do antiseptic basic hygiene. Right. And so when I'm sitting there, I started laughing. I'm talking to some guys in there. I was like, I can't believe that I could have accidentally discovered that you should take your supplements at night with a high dose omega, with a mushroom medley to capture the adrenal functions, but with a basic NAD mix to help the cell function more efficiently, and a multivitamin that's designed to be neurotropic. Throw them all together, and then just the hardest part is convincing somebody to take them at night, right? And or take them at all. Like you could tell a smoker you shouldn't smoke. You tell the person that should go to the gym, doesn't mean they will, right? So now the hardest part is the human component. But once all that gets answered, it all works. And I was talking to a buddy, and he's like, so we started laughing. And he's like, oh, he's just read a thing where the pencil and the eraser existed side by side for 300 years before somebody decided to put the eraser on the pencil. Hmm.
They made $1 billion.
made somebody $1 billion. And so I'm like, okay, so it's not impossible. It's just improbable. But holy shit, I have, a really intense market survey that shows everybody's self-reported symptoms get better. And if I want to run like a full FDA certified study, it's like
Double
$500,000.
blind.
Yeah, double blinded. I was like, I can't afford that. I'm just dude in the army pulling an army paycheck.
And that's our big conversation with the
Yeah.
VA right now. It's like, hey man, we got all these modalities, including yours, that from a repetitive brain trauma perspective addresses the problem, which is an injured brain. Yet you want to you want to hold these men to these FDA backed pharmaceutical products and
Hmm.
therapy that do not address the issue, number one. And number two, they have a 25% rate of possible effectiveness the first time around. And yet we have 90+% of the population over here with these modalities saying this impacted and protected and possibly saved my life. So why is this just not good enough? Why do we need these double blind, longitudinal studies that take forever? Then all your researchers will make a study, but they can't afford their Mercedes Benzes, so they go ahead and get more grants to research the same research again. I mean, we've
Hmm.
researched concussions and TBIs,
Yeah,
billions of
yeah.
dollars, and we still, yeah.
We know
And
how it happens.
and then the treatments for TBIs or whatever is the same thing that, that we had, and we still got 22 people going a day, all this stuff, man. So it's, the paradigm shift in just perspective that the VA has to have on this and the medical profession, because they're boxed in with their guilds and protective measures to ensure paychecks, whatever. And you're threatening that with a bunch of natural supplements and neurotropics that are having a far better effect than they're shaking the head, right? I mean,
Oh my
goddamn.
god,
So
don't ever shake anybody's head. Please stop doing that. Vestibular therapy, you might as well just do an amputation in the head. It's like right there. Lobotomies used to be a medical procedure, like, 80 years ago, right? Like, they just put, like, a spike into the brain and hope it changed your personality, like,
yeah. So
medicine
where do
is
you
kooky.
go from here with this, man? What's up now? What do you?
Um, let's see, so the HERO
This is an
protocol is
amazing
live.
story, man. Amazing
Yeah,
story.
yeah. So the HERO protocol is live. Talking to some fire departments who are like, "Hey, like if your thing allows guys to get to sleep better and have better rest, like we want this because they do split work and shift work, right? That's what
Yeah.
everybody's right." And one of the components, or one in the market survey, guys are writing back like, "I wake up ready to go, like a spring chicken. I'm ready to go." So the fire department's looking into getting doing their own internal study or survey. A couple dietitians have reached out. I'm talking to, and here's the fundamental problem. Like I have all the building blocks in line, but I think it's about 14 million people have some sort of concussion or traumatic brain injury a year between the military and civilian population. Even if I launch this with $1 billion, like I'm not going to be able to reach everybody. And so I've launched it, but I'm at that point where I can't help enough people fast enough. So I'm thinking, license out the IP because it's a patented formula and timing and application and target. And then just if someone else wants to launch this faster and do it in a safe manner, partner with them. And I mean, it's because I can't keep product on the shelf fast enough because people go figure, people enjoy not having migraines, headaches, or yelling at
Yeah.
the yeah,
Yeah.
and getting sleep, like holy shit, like, it's like me and it's easy, right? Like, if it's just you and me, I'm just gonna tell you to take it at night. But if it's like a business trying to make money, like, I had to suffer for 18 years to figure out what I had to discover. And then I spent a year researching it and everything else. And my fear is, though, that it's going to default into, people are big pharma is going to turn this into something that's inaccessible. That's why I'm very upfront with like, hey,
We
the
can we
formula,
can
this,
talk off we can talk offline, bro. I'm on my eighth company right now.
well, then
Uh,
shit, I'm talking to
yeah.
the right guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can
So,
absolutely provide
yeah.
you some good advice, some counsel
Okay.
on how to possibly keep control of it, make sure
Yeah.
that it's properly used, because we had the same problem with these something like this device right here comes from Australia. This is the only device commercially available for a parent to track subconcussive trauma in their kid, and it's a mouth guard. Okay, and you can't buy them. Everyone that's come out in the United States has mysteriously gone out of business because, you know, sports doesn't want parents to know that these sports harm their brains.
Right.
Otherwise, why we all play baseball or basketball, right? No, there's no baseball or basketball players in CT brain bank.
Hmm.
So the issue is that there is a universe out there that will take your product off the shelf. There is a
Oh, yeah.
universe out
Yeah.
there that does not want you to be successful, where I think you could be very successful. Yeah, that's a conversation we can have offline at any time. All free advice, bro. I've blown myself up every way in business you could possibly do it. I've made all the mistakes, bro. Nobody can make more mistakes than Bruce Parkman running a company, dude. Well, so man,
Yeah.
3 exits. God's been good to me, man. So yeah, definitely would like to talk to you about that
Okay. Yeah.
offline.
Yeah. I'm all for it. As long as at the end of the day, people are getting better. So we were talking about the omega, right?
Hmm.
So omega is really important. I've talked to Dr. Lewis about this for hours on end. But the type of omega you get matters, right? If I just tell you go get an omega, it's the same as if I tell you go to the gas station and get some gas or fuel, right? But I didn't specify if it's diesel, fuel, natural gas, or like 90, 91 or 87, right? Or ethanol mix. And it matters when you're talking about what goes in the brain. And so it has to be a high dose DHA because there's three subcomponents of omegas. So you think diesel, natural gas, and car gas. EPA, which is what your doctor tells you to take, fish oil, is good for your cardiovascular system. It's down here stuff, right? It keeps your heart open. And it's good for immediate inflammation. DHA is a much more basic constructive omega. And then ALA, which comes from vegetables and like flax, is really hard to get. And people don't really like it because mathematically they're like, oh, it only gives me 10% EPA and 10% DHA. And I look at them, I was like, yeah, but what about the other 80%? What's that doing? And using 18 Delta Special Forces medicine, we get taught how to intentionally have synergistic effects with medicine. So one medicine plus one medicine doesn't equal two, it equals 5 or 10. You can amplify. Like Nubane plus promethazine, you can amplify it together and it turns into basically a morphine, which is like an effect of 10, where you just had an input of ones. And so I combined all three of the omegas. But after realizing that, because fish, you got to think about this, fish and krill, they don't make omegas, right? They don't, there's no like omega gland in a fish or a krill. But how do big manufacturers get a fish and omegas out of fish? They literally grind them down and then wash them with an alcohol. And that alcohol grabs the oil, kind of like washing your dishes. And they catch it in a bucket at the end. I'm sure. Hopefully, it's more mechanically sound than that. They effectively catch it in a bucket, filter it. That alcohol is bound to that fat soluble, which is an omega, and then they put it in the bottle, right? And you're just like, hold on, that's not good for you, right? Because now you're ingesting all that, and all the other processes are very labor intensive and very mechanically intensive. So if you're paying generally anything less than $40 for your fish oil omegas, it's actually you might as well be, drinking out of the garbage disposal. Like you just don't want that in your system because at that point, turns out you actually then start absorbing even less than you're taking. And most of it is EPA, right? So it's a whole negative return on investment. But if you so where do fish get omegas? Well, they get it from algae, right? Turns out you get it from algae. Now technology is coming up, these huge fermentation tanks, they grow algae. The algae is literally made out of oil. Put them out on a big pan, they dry it, they chop it up, and then you get algae oil from it, right? That's why I very specifically, every product is dry powdered because it is the least processed. Because every time you process it with a mechanical way or a chemical way, you're going to lose those fundamental components. So I found with myself is that when I switched to algae based omega powder, my brain inflammation felt 1,000% less. All right. And so if you think the EPA is great for your upfront, imagine there's a kitchen fire on your stove, grease fire. The EPA serves as a fire extinguisher, puts it out, but doesn't have any fundamental building blocks. The DHA, however, is like replacing the oven. It might take a little longer, but now you're going to have a new oven. And so the running theory now is that's why in about 7 to 10 days, plus 30 days, because that's when the major transformations seem to happen, Once you've done an entire DHA omega-3 exchange, oil change in your brain, by my standards, by everybody else's reported standards, starts fundamentally feeling like it's back to normal. Um, and I'll tell you this, and this will definitely get me assassinated by like Eli Lilly and Pfizer. A buddy of mine bought three. This was maybe a month ago. He bought three. He's taking one. He's going over his neighbor's house. His neighbor's Alzheimer's. 6 years old. Has had Alzheimer's for 15 years. Past 5 years have been the worst. So he's like, he talks to the mom. And he's like, hey, see if he'll take this. Just open up the dry capsules, put it in his drink, let him drink it. Right? She says, okay. 3 days later, he remembers her name. He hasn't remembered her the name in years. All right.
Holy cow.
2 weeks later, he remembers everybody else's name. He hasn't talked to anybody directly in weeks or in months. And then, so so my buddy calls me and he's like, hey, I went behind your back. I was like, well, what'd you do? He's a great guy. Yeah, I'm like, what'd you do this time? He's like, I gave your hero protocol to my neighbor who has got Alzheimer's. I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm not liable for anything that happened to him. All right. Like, he didn't sign any paperwork with me. What happened? And he's like, well, he's been on it about 3 weeks because they work on a big farm. They would let grandma or grandpa go into the farm and help pick eggs just to keep him busy, right? Otherwise, grandpa's just going to shuffle around. And when grandpa, before Alzheimer's, he could get 8 trays of eggs because it's one of these huge chicken farms. And he would get 8 trays of eggs. But when he got Alzheimer's, he started trending down. And now he, on average, gets 1 tray of eggs a day. And they're like, but he's been on the protocol for 3 weeks and he's back to 8 trays of eggs. And then he's like, then they're like, yeah, but then he went out and he like popped the lever on one of the dairy farm containers and dumped $20,000 worth of milk out. But they're like, so he's still got Alzheimer's, but at least he knows our names and he's fun to talk to. And so I'm just like, holy shit! Did we just do a Semmelweis thing? Did we just accidentally discover by me almost dying that DHA omegas from algae taken at night with everything else can fundamentally change aspects? I was like, I'm I'm remiss to say that because that's literally just one dude that's been on it for 3 weeks that has Alzheimer's and is doing better by his family's accounts. I've never met the gentleman. I'm told the family is ecstatic, and he turned to grandma the other day and said he loves her. And she's like, he hasn't told me that in years either. Right? So like something is positive is happening to him. And if it happened to me when I was 40 and it's happening to a dude when he's 76, and the longest running guy, 2-star retired general, he's been on it for over 10 months now. His NSI score went from 38 migraines every 3 days to within 2 months down to 18, which is huge, back to normal. And then for the past 8 months, he's maintained a teen level value on his NSI score, which means he's functional normal. These are all self-reported, not FDA verified. But yeah, like, so I'm just sitting there, I'm like, okay, what do I do? I was like, I just need to tell people. The age of the internet, why not? I'm not going to hold on to this because every hour I hold on to this is a veteran killing himself. So the short of it is, I don't care if you buy my product or the Hero Protocol or somebody else's. Take all your shit at night. High dose DHA, we're talking 2 grams DHA a night. Throw everything else in there as you see fit and want to. But for fuck's sake, like, options are on the table. And as a Green Beret, I've been trained to ignore. I've been fired because I ignored bureaucracy, but I still got a result. And then they're like, oh, but the result was amazing, so we're going to stop. We're going to unfire you, get back in the saddle. Like, I have been trained specifically to look at problems and say, how do I solve this the fastest, by rules or by standards or, you know. I remember I was in Africa. We are talking about the Westgate incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't figure out why the army, the special ops unit, the African special ops unit we're with, wasn't killing Al Shabaab. We gave them, millions of dollars in nods and NVGs and batteries and everything else. We gave them millions of dollars of, new rifles, scars, and they're still not effective. Part of your mission is to figure out why. And so we finally take these guys to the range, as everybody does. And these guys, these African, special ops guys, would take their rifle, tuck it under their armpit, and just start shooting this way, like up at like a 30, 45-degree angle. It's the oddest thing. But they were using the front sight post to look forward. We're like, what are you guys doing? They're like, well, we're using the front sight post like the British taught us to use. We're like, okay. Like, what about the rear sight post? The scar. I'm like, there is no rear sight post. And we're like, click, and the rear sight post pops up. We're like, there's a rear sight post. These guys have been going on patrol for years with scars without using their rear sight post. So their effective firing capacity had been 5-10 meters. So we're like, okay, so we're at the range and they're shooting at 45-degree angles with 7.62. And we're like, the Bravo starts laughing. He's like, what's 3 miles that way? He's like, oh, a village. How often do you kill somebody at that village? They're like, oh, like once a year. And we're like, oh shit, like this is a real issue, right? And so we start trying to teach these guys how to use their front and rear sight posts in order for them to shoot flat. And so we'd put up paper targets. They'd shoot at it 2 or 3 times, and they're like, "Ah, it's boring. We don't care." And then they'd go back to shooting under their arm. And so I started looking at this. I was like, "There's been at least 25-30 million dollars thrown at this problem." And I was like, "But these guys are not talking like professional soldiers. They're talking almost like they just want entertainment." And so I turned to one of my guys. I was like, "Give me $1,000." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Give me $1,000. I'll be back by noon, or I'll be back in the evening." So I get in a truck, $1,000. I drive to Nairobi. I go to the only party store in Nairobi, and I buy $1,000 worth of party balloons. And I drive back. We go to the range, and I blow them up. And the Bravo is flipping out. He's like, "How dare you put party balloons on my range? Like, what are you doing? We're shooting paper." I was like, "They're not going to shoot paper. They don't care." So I line up the paper, put my Bravo in front of it. I'm like, "All right, shoot, all the balloons on off the paper as fast as you can." And he's like, "All right." And the entire African special ops unit goes, "Oh my god!" And they start doing their dance. And so I'm like, we have to treat the problem where the reality is. They don't want to shoot paper to get better, so we got to teach them to shoot balloons. So literally, I had to train a squad of these guys how to blow up balloons because they've never seen balloons before. And so part of the trip was teaching guys. It's not on any OER or anything, but it's like teach guys how to blow up balloons and then stable them to the board. We got these guys before who couldn't shoot 5 meters because not only did they not have a rear sight post that they're aware of, and because they didn't care. Right, so you have two factors. Doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. Two factors. But now we got them shooting up to 500 meters with iron sights because we would blow up balloons 500 meters, boom, 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 boom. Then you couldn't graduate that course until you could get all of them. What that does to an average soldier is if you put him anywhere on a hill, he can do 500 meters that way, 500 meters that way, effective target. You've just created a 1 kilometer kill bubble, right? You string these guys across. Now they can secure their borders. Now they can do cross border operations. There has not been a single terrorist event in that country since my team left
Because of the balloons.
because
Wow.
$1,000 in party balloons solved a multi-million-dollar international problem.
And you
So
know what,
I'm,
Jacek?
yeah,
That
go for it.
same level of innovation is what's gonna take your product to the next level. And I think that's gonna be it's an amazing opportunity. You say it's luck. This is all God, man. There's no luck. There's no coincidences in this world, man. And I think it's awesome what you're able to discover, not only for yourself, but for, the other veterans out there that need this
Mhm.
so bad. So as we close out, because getting close time to go, tell us. I always want to give my guests time to talk about themselves. How do people find you? How do they find the Hero Protocol? And what's out there for publications that they should be looking at, and what's next for Jacek and his amazing product, and
That's
Jacek on his journey.
No, I appreciate that. As long as Eli and Pfizer don't assassinate me,
They're not even threatened by you right now. They will be
yeah,
someday.
they will be. So it's theheroprotocol.com. All right, go on there, you buy a 1 month protocol, and by the end of it, just tell me how you're doing. And that's kind of my ask. On Instagram, it's JW underscore Jack underscore official. And other than that, right now, I'm just trying to launch a company and be a good dad to my kids. And I've been gone for 18 years of their lives, or 18 years, so most of their lives now, and trying to give it back to them. So nothing complicated, man.
Good for you, man. Service to others, man. It's a great way to start a new career, a new chapter, and you're exemplifying that. As we close out, I want to say thank you for your service. Thank you
Hey,
for your
yours too.
dedication. I want to absolutely, pray for you and your company and your product and the future that it holds for our veteran population. And if you need anything, reach out to me. We will talk about some of the possibilities of your company for sure. I'll have Denny link us up for sure.
You're awesome. I
All
appreciate
right.
you very
No,
much.
thank you so much, man. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Take care.
So, folks, another amazing, amazing guest on Broken Brains. Really thank you for paying attention. Remember, you want to know more about the subject, especially if you're a parent, get the book. It's for free. I had to write it in Grief. It's online at our website, www.mpfact.org. Go there. Don't forget about our app for parents on the Apple Store and the Google Store. That's out there. Smart Head Smart out there, the only concussion app with RHI information on it. We will start hosting webinars for veterans and athletes on the issues of repetitive blast exposure, repetitive head impacts, all about educating both those populations how to validate, diagnose, and take care of themselves, to apply for disability and compensation to cover the wounds and the invisible injuries that they're suffering from doing their service to serving their country, or for their dedication to their sport. And hey, if you like this episode, please thank you so much for listening to the show. Follow us on Instagram at Broken Brains Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube at Broken Brains with Bruce Parkman. Please like us, subscribe us if you can. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast. We really appreciate it. And remember, if you're a parent, your children and yourself only got one melon. And this melon is the most complex organ that God ever created. It's better than any quantum computer out there, and it's all you got. So take care of that as you go forward. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time on Broken Brains with your host, me, Bruce Parkman. Talk to you soon. Take care.